going on, everybody? Welcome back to Real Talk Realty Podcast, where we put the real in real estate. You're with your host, JD.
And Gabby.
And Louis Namick.
And we have a special guest, a very, very special guest that's near and dear to my heart, Amy Wolf with the Direct Mortgage Loans here in Frederick, Amy Wolf team. We are so glad to have her on today. I've been in real estate now for about 5 to 6 years, and Amy was one of the first lenders that I got hooked up with when I got in the industry. And trust me, it took me a while. It takes, I think, every real estate agent a little while to find somebody that they trust with their business, as far as, home inspectors and lenders and all of that, and title companies. And when I found Amy, I was so happy because for a new agent who's coming in the industry, sometimes you need a lender to be able to break things down to you in simplistic terms so that you kind of know what's actually going on. And Amy, one of the first things she did with the team that I had been on at the time was she got together with us, and it was almost like a lending 101 class that we did, and it was super informative and just made me feel that much more confident when talking to clients, because lenders and agents have to be on the same page.
That's 100% true.
Yeah, we have to be on the same page because every lender's got a little bit of a different process, but even as far as like the lender jargon and some of the terminology and things like that, it's really important to kind of know what you're talking about. But we are so glad to have you on today and really excited to talk about what you have going on over at Direct Mortgage Loans. So, Amy, why don't you tell us just a little bit about yourself and how you got in the industry?
Oh, wow. So I was actually bartending at night. I was a social worker back then. I actually had my master's in social work, and I was bartending on Mondays to make ends meet. And this guy kept coming in and saying, Amy, why don't you try mortgages? And fast forward, I wrote a little letter and made phone calls to everybody I knew, told them what I was doing now. And they put my social work job on hold temporarily, which was nice of them. And I actually never looked back. So now I guess some people have called me the social worker of mortgages, which is good and bad. I'm like, if we can do the easy ones too, we don't just do all the hard
So
ones.
how long have you been doing mortgages now?
Don't quote me on this, but 22, 23, something like that.
Yeah, you're an expert now.
So yeah. So we've been doing it for a real long time. I always think I've seen everything, but then the next day happens and then you see something new. So, but definitely a lot of experience with all of it. So.
And I would say, with social work, that goes probably hand in hand with what you're doing, because really it's all about helping people, assisting people, helping them accomplish their goals. And I bet you that runs hand in hand with you.
Yeah, for sure. So
just like real estate too.
Right.
Yeah, it definitely collides. I think a lot of times people have a lot of stress. They're ready to jump off the ledge, or, oh, this is too hard, or I'm too scared, or whatever. And like, we are there to handhold, to walk them through the process, to make sure, that they're doing what's right for them. And and it's very rewarding. So love it.
That's awesome. And I'm glad you spoke about how long you've been doing this, because I know from personal experience in dealing with multiple lenders, and even in some cases newer lenders, that maybe a client has already came to me with a lender that maybe just got his license and everything, a year or 2 years in. And the amount of time and the experience that you have, what it does is it gives you the ability to be creative in how to get certain deals done. And that's where somebody who has that level of experience has such a leg up over somebody who is a novice. Not saying, obviously everybody's got to make their way, but at the same token, there are some situations where you need a bit of creativity in order to get something across the finish line.
Right. Yeah. Well, that leads me to my first question. My question is, what is the craziest loan approval you've ever had to do?
Oh, man. I mean, over 23 years, I've seen a lot. I think there's rewarding ones where it was so crazy. I'm like, I can't believe we made it to the end, where we've taken someone who, was on Section 8. They were barely making ends meet. They just happened to come in and say, I just wanted to have a meeting just to see what my options are. We were able to use down payment assistance programs, get them into the house, but then where it becomes more remarkable is then this young lady then ended up buying her own investment property.
Wow.
I helped her out with that, and she ended up flipping it, making some money off of that. And
that's incredible.
Yeah, now they're family's no longer on Section 8. Mom's getting ready to try and buy a house too. So it's like, that was a really cool one, I guess.
That is a huge game changer right there.
Yeah.
And you are one that has a lot of people who send their friends and family back to you over the years. And you only can get that kind of situation by giving absolutely amazing service and really helping people.
Yeah, it's definitely somebody who cares about people and somebody who cares about their work and their pride in their work.
Yeah.
And speaking of which, Amy does a whole bunch of stuff that is after the closing. For one, she does really cool stuff for your closing, but I'm not going to tell you what that is. You just got to buy a house with her.
I want to know.
Well, you want to buy a house? Need a lender?
But she also really, this is one thing I've always really loved Amy Wolf for, is that when you're a real estate agent and you do a transaction with Amy Wolf, right? And let's say that your follow-up game as a real estate agent is not that good, right? And let's just say that maybe 2 years down the road, this person decides that they're going to either upgrade or, downsize or whatever it is. Your name in Amy Wolf's database as a real estate agent is attached to that client. So when they come back in and they reach back out to Amy Wolf, you will be notified as an agent that your client is back on the search again, and she will hook you up. She keeps that in the database, which we all appreciate.
Not many lenders do that sort of.
Now, I personally don't know anybody that does that.
Yeah.
That was one of the things I did that I think helped me off in the very beginning. Was I started this database when no one really had CRMs back then. I was using Act back then, if I want to date myself. And yeah, it was like everybody goes in there, friends, family, they're all attached to the right person, and it helps to be able to drive that business and stay in touch with people. So,
That's important.
Yeah.
And Amy, you have quite the size as far as the amount of people that are working in your team and kind of under your umbrella. And that's another thing that's always made me happy to work with you, is that, I don't need to get in touch with Amy to get everything done. She has people that are working around the clock on the weekends. She's always got somebody designated. And that's super important for us, especially if we're out showing a house and on a whim somebody says, I need to get pre-approved now, or something like that. It's like, it's always been a seamless process as far as getting somebody from beginning to end.
Yeah, and it's also important that the lender updates the realtor. A lot of lenders do not update the realtor, and you're left in the wind. So it's really important when you are looking for a lender to use in your career as a real estate agent, make sure that person is thorough and updates you.
Yeah. Well, she has an app for that.
We do. We definitely do. And we believe in transparency and communication. And yes, I have built a large team. We have 10 of us right now. And I think it's so important because I couldn't give the level of customer service and all of the updates. And I couldn't do, I'm in the top 1% in the nation. And why? Well, it's because of my team. My team's awesome, right?
That's awesome.
And
Top 1% of the nation. Hit the applause button on that one.
So, Amy, what sets you apart, from other lenders?
Oh, I really just think it's that I care, that people aren't a number. My wife yells at me all the time. She's like, you work all the time. And I'm like, well, it's not even about the numbers. It's not even about the money. It's not even about the paycheck. It's about how many people can we help, who needs us to educate them and just really help them to get to that next spot, whether it's a vacation home, investment property, first home. I really just enjoy it.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's what we were talking about last week. We were going over our wins. It's super important to not only look at the numbers, but to actually care for the client.
Right. And we did say, I don't know what it was, you or JD, people know.
Yeah.
When you're faking it and when you're not really a caring person, people will click on that and they know. So
Gabby, actually, it's funny, we talked about this a little bit last week. So one of the things that she just did for a recent closing is she got this this big ribbon situation that stretched on these two poles out front of these people's house that they just settled on.
It was like a ribbon cutting.
It was a ribbon cutting, but she came out with a TV, gave him a TV.
Oh, I remember that.
Yeah.
Nice.
That set her apart.
I know. I felt a little bad about my little bottles of champagne after that.
Or my bottle of wine.
Yeah. So, Amy, as far as programs and stuff that we, obviously a part of this show and what we try to do is educate the public on especially first-time home buyers and how they can get prepared. So what is something that if you are just kind of tinkering around with the idea of buying a home, what's one of the first couple things that you would say that somebody should do to just kind of get ready as far as getting prepared?
I think the very first step is don't be scared and just give us a call and apply, right? And people think, oh, an application means I'm buying now. That's not the case, right? So for me, we're applying to figure out your situation, figure out what you can do, what you can't do, what you need to maybe work on or not work on, or what do we need to save up? You know, how does it look? What can we afford? And it's really planning. So for me, knowledge is power. And I'm always like, let's get that app. Let's figure the story. Let's figure out what it is that you want to do. And let's come up with a plan. So whether you're planning on buying next year, 2 years from now, I still would say, you know, give us a call or pick up the app and do the application, just so you can find out the facts and find out where you sit. You never know what's on your credit. I always tell the story about my brother when he went to move to Florida. And I pulled his credit, and he came up deceased. And my yeah, and my father had passed away years and years ago, and my father had a very similar name, and it took a long time. I'm like, he's sitting here, he's alive. Come on, we can give him a loan.
Right.
And it took a long time to fix it, and it was something that he had to then postpone his closing. I think it was over 6 months before we could get everything.
That was a different market.
Yeah.
Speaking about credit, one of the number one things that my clients fear about calling a lender, and I get the same thing all the time. What's the difference? Can you let the audience know what the difference is between a soft credit pull and an official credit pull?
Yeah. So we always start with a soft credit pull, which basically you're not even going to know we pulled credit. The only way you know is because we told you, right? And of course we got your information from you. So it doesn't hit the bureaus. It's not an inquiry. It's not going to do anything. The full credit pull, obviously that one is going to be a full pull. It does hit credit. Not a big deal because it's a mortgage credit pull, so it won't have a big impact on your credit score. However, what does happen is all of a sudden your phone starts ringing off the hook.
I've experienced that before.
Those creditors, it's not us, I promise, but the credit companies do
It's
sell
the
your
bureaus that do that? Oh, okay.
Yeah, they sell your information to other people.
That's when Rocket starts blowing you up.
Yep.
So I usually tell people just, hey, bear with it for the next week or two. Store a number in. Anybody else? I mean, we're all used to getting those calls. There is an opt-out pre-screen a lot of times we tell people to do. I tell everybody to do that. Do it as soon as you can, and hopefully that will cut down on some of the calls, but it's not going to cut down all of them.
So people should not be afraid about calling a lender and asking if I can afford a house.
No, absolutely not. A lot of times I think people don't call because they're scared or they're embarrassed. Oh, well, if I call you, I didn't pay this bill off yet. I didn't do that. Who cares, right?
Yeah.
I have simulators that tell me if you pay this one down, your score is going to go up, or if you pay that one down. And like, don't just guess at it. Just give us a call. I promise you, if you ever have the worst credit, I will give you an award. I promise you, I've seen credit worse than everyone that is going to come out.
You don't know what you don't know.
Right, that's the big thing. That's the huge thing. And so tell me if I'm wrong, Amy, but there's certain times too where people will have an outstanding debt or whatever, and they, sometimes actually paying it completely off is less effective than just paying down a portion of it, and that's something the simulator tells you?
Yeah, the simulator will tell us that. I mean, sometimes, paying off collections is a good thing. I always say it stops like the bleeding so it doesn't stab you every month. But then also sometimes you pay off a collection that hadn't reported in a while, then it's going to tank your credit score because it comes with all that other reporting. Paying off an installment loan could be a bad thing. But yeah, the simulator is going to tell us all those things. It's safe to say, usually credit card debt, keep that paid down. The lower that is, the higher that score will likely go.
What do you think is kind of the minimum credit score that when you see, I know every situation is unique, so it's hard to just make a blanket statement, but generally speaking, what's like a credit score that you see and you're like, okay, this is doable?
So I guess 580 is this is doable, not great. I mean, every once in a while you can get them done even less than that, but you have to have a lot more money to throw at it.
Right.
The 640 score is kind of that, okay, cool, we've got something to work with here.
Yeah.
I would say great credit is going to be that 680 to 720 mark. But yeah, I think, don't be scared of it. When we pull credit, it actually has a plus number underneath of it. So we'll actually say credit score is currently 590, and sometimes it says plus 54. I actually looked at one this morning that was that. Plus 54 right under it. And all it is paying down some credit cards. And they actually have the money in their savings account.
So it'll say plus 54 as in like you do this one thing and it'll go up 54 points?
Sometimes more than one thing, but yeah. Like you could, within 1 month, by paying off the correct things,
Wow.
Yeah, you got some pretty good tools.
Yeah.
You got some really
Why,
good
thanks.
tools. Yeah.
See, that's one of the things that I always like, though, is because with Amy, like, and also it's easy for people to get discouraged if they, let's say they finally do make the jump and they fill out a pre-approval and whatnot, and then they don't get the information, get the answer that they like. A lot of people will just kind of fade away into oblivion. But I know that with Amy firsthand, she keeps tabs on everybody. And not only that, she takes it one step further and she gives them a roadmap on what steps they need to do in order to get to where they want to go.
The guidance they need.
Yeah, exactly. And I can tell you, I've dealt with so many lenders where it's the complete opposite.
Yes.
They check the credit, it comes in low, and you know what? They just go, you know what? I don't want to do it.
And then they forget about it, and there's no follow-up.
There's no follow-up.
Yep.
Yeah, and that just sucks, right?
But that also goes to show the lender, right? The lender was clearly only in it for the sale, the quick sale, and not necessarily the good of the client.
Right.
So let me ask you my last question for this beautiful lender here. What is the number one thing you can tell a client? What's the number one mistake that people do before buying a house? What is the...
Buy a car. It's like...
well, what's the number one mistake they do in order that they get their loan denied?
Yeah, I mean, I think the number one is not applying and being scared to, but I think, gosh, throughout the process, you see so many different things. Let's say applying for new debt or closing out cards or moving money around. That makes it a nightmare for us.
Oh.
Yeah.
Moving money from one account to another
It
account.
looks suspicious, right?
Yeah, or we have to track it. You have to remember in lending, we're telling a story of paperwork, right? So we have to tell the story for everything. So, I've actually had someone who switched jobs the week of closing. And yes, we do a verbal verification of employment right before closing. And so that could be a big mistake.
Yeah.
Especially if it's a different career, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. And it's okay. It's okay if we know it's coming, right?
Right.
Because we just have to have that offer letter. And it's just,
But Amy, I'm getting paid more.
right.
That's the first thing that you say.
Exactly.
It's a raise.
Yeah. And
I remember going to show a new house that was under contract, but it came off market to one of my clients. And I walked up there and the sales agent was there. And I said, why did this house go off market? She says, well, the truth of the matter is that the guy who purchased this house showed up to closing. And when he showed up to closing, everybody saw him get out of a brand new car.
Oh, man.
So right then and there, they told him, you're not going to be able to close today.
Jeez.
Yeah. I had a guy do that. He pulled up to the office. This was years ago. He got out of his new Beamer, came in all smiling. He was so excited. And I said, please tell me you didn't just buy that. And he goes, nope, I didn't buy it. I leased it. And I'm like, oh, God, that's even worse. Because at least you can't, if you bought it, you can go turn it back and be like, hey, I'm sorry I made a mistake. And we can,
do this in 2 weeks.
A lease. You can't turn a lease back in.
Yeah.
So just check with your lender before you do anything. And no major changes, while you're buying a house.
I always harass Mike Tozzolo because, I recently had somebody and they were like, hey, they were getting ready to buy like a TV or something for their new house, and they just were going to throw it on a card. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure I know the answer to this. Let me call Mike. And then I call Mike. He's like, yeah, no, don't just everything's chill right now. Just let it be chill. I'm like, all right, cool.
Yeah. When in doubt, don't do it. I mean, I've had somebody buy, I opened up new credit because I bought all my furniture. And I'm like, oh, great. Well, now you don't have a house to put that furniture in, right?
That's so sad. That's so
Let's
sad.
do it in the right order.
Yeah.
What are you seeing right now, I guess, in the market as far as one question that I know a lot of people have, especially agents, is appraisals and where they're coming in at, whether they're coming in high, whether they're coming in low. What are you kind of seeing out there? Are you seeing a large amount coming in low, or where are you seeing it?
I've seen a mixed bag of it, actually. So I've seen some come in high. We're like, oh, sweet. And when one does come in high, sometimes we can make some changes to it where maybe we can roll in some closing cost or whatever have you. We have had a couple come in low lately. So it really depends on the area, right? I mean, the appraisers go out and they're using the best comps that are right then and there. So I always tell people, I'm like, equity in your house is hypothetical, I guess. So it's like, oh yeah, so right now I have this equity, and tomorrow my neighbor sells his house for 20 grand less than mine. Well, guess what? My value technically went down. When I bought my house, my wife and I bought our house, I think our house dropped probably about 100 grand within the first 2 or 3 months. That was back during 2006. But it didn't matter. Why didn't it matter? Because my monthly payment was just fine.
Yeah.
Right? We were fine. We weren't going anywhere. And now it's been 20 years, and now I could sell my house and probably make 500 grand on my house. So what goes up comes down, and what goes down comes back up. So,
exactly. Well, you just said something interesting there. So, okay, so let's say a property comes in over value, and you said something about maybe giving the buyer some more closing costs. So how does that work?
Well, a lot of places I think can't do this, but I've been creative, as you said. And so a lot of times what we'll do is we'll go back to the agent and say, like, hey, look, how are we okay if we raise the purchase price by 10 grand and get our seller 10 grand in closing help? Yeah. And a lot of times the seller doesn't really care as long as their bottom line's the same.
Right.
So sometimes we even write in a clause saying, that realtor commissions will still be paid off of the original purchase price, and we usually show them both HUDs from the title company to show them, hey, if you do this, you're actually going to get $100 more. So we've done things like that before. Sometimes it's repairs, renovations, maybe something they want done to the house that we can increase the price 10 grand and see if the seller minds getting the house painted or floor put in or whatever ahead of time, or
I was going to say that's really useful for the first-time home buyer who doesn't typically have, after their closing, they don't typically have a ton of reserves left over. I mean, they have some, but not enough to do a project at the house. So that's pretty cool to be able to, hey.
It all comes down to the seller and the agent on the other side. If they're willing to play ball, sometimes you have a deal where not to ask.
Yes.
Right? So
we've had our share of those, right?
Oh, yeah.
So tell us some of like the programs that you have for first-time home buyers besides like the normal MMP that everyone else knows about. Like, what else do you have that you can offer for first-time home buyers?
I mean, gosh, there's so many programs. There's, of course, MMP that you said not to mention. Then there's county programs. So like Frederick County has their programs. There's the grant program that you don't have to pay back from the FHLB. We just started rolling that one out.
Oh, nice.
Downfall of that one is turn times are like 45 to 60 days. So having someone accept an offer that's that far.
Anytime there's free money, there's some time that needs to go by.
Yeah.
If you don't have to pay it back, they're going to scan a little.
As long as the seller will wait around, then hey, let's do it. Let's get it done. So a lot of the different programs that are out there are county or city specific, and so basically all of them, any of them that are out there, we can do. We actually have a down payment assistance specialist. She's been on my team for about 10 years now, probably a little longer. She's probably going to yell at me. So she submits every package for us. So when we do the Maryland Mortgage Program or Frederick County HAP or Hagerstown Home Store, or any of those different programs, she submits the package into them. Shout out for her. She actually got a Processor of the Year with the Maryland Mortgage Program last year.
That's a long way from starting from Amy's gardener.
Oh, that's true. She was out. That's how we met. She was actually out back doing some yard work for me. I said, hey, can you type? And 10 years later, we're still working together and still helping out a lot of people.
I didn't know that until the other day, and she told me, and I was like, I forget how we got on the topic of it. She's like, yeah, I love Amy. And I was like, yeah. Oh, because I was talking about trying to get you on the podcast. And I was like, no, I love Amy. And then she told me that, she had started with you as a gardener. And I was like, geez, now look at you. I said, started as a gardener? She goes, well, yeah, obviously I like her because I've been here that long.
For first-time homebuyers, we do a homebuyer education class. So it's online the first Wednesday of every month, and Ronnie actually runs that. So it's the...
we got to inform our clients on that one.
First Wednesday of every month, look up Amy Wolf at Direct Mortgage Loans. They're hosting first-time homebuyer classes. You see it here.
That is awesome.
And the whole theme of that is rah rah sis kumbaya. You can do it. Don't be scared. Let's learn about the process. And it's we don't talk about what you guys do as real estate agents because we know how to stay in our lane.
Yeah.
But
we do too.
Talk about those programs and that you can do it. Anybody can do it.
That's awesome. Well, I think the message here, if you were watching, is just get pre-approved. Find out what you don't know. You can't make a decision unless you have all the facts. You know, you got to have somewhere to start. So
or the guidance.
and the guidance. And Amy is certain to hold your hand throughout that whole process, I will say. So I've seen it firsthand experience.
It was a pleasure meeting you today.
You too.
Absolutely. I mean, I've been talking her up all this time. I'm like, you guys got to meet her.
Yes. Well, you talked her up right.
All right, good.
I always say you don't want me on your trivia team, but if you have a question about mortgages, I'm your girl.
I love it.
Well, I'll be sure to put her information as well under the video. So if anyone wants to get pre-approved or reach out to her with questions, you can do so as well.
Oh, and I should mention we're having our the first third Wednesday of every month, starting in April, will be our Spanish-speaking first-time home buyer.
Oh!
So that's
there we go.
There
we go.
And no habla español here.
So do you have a Spanish-speaking person?
I actually have 3 of them, yeah.
Awesome.
Yep.
3. You
I'm
hear that?
sold. I'm sold.
I saw a huge need. And so worked really hard at building it out. And yeah, so we've got an intake gal, a loan partner who's licensed, and then also my processor and operations managers also.
You really don't. You get it. That's important.
Yeah.
That is so important to the Spanish-speaking population.
Yeah.
Because when you speak Spanish and you go into a transaction this large, people get nervous.
Yeah.
When you don't know the language, you're even more nervous.
Oh, I was doing a lot of those deals on my own, and I knew I was doing a disservice when their 10-year-old child was, translating for me. And I'm like, this is not good. I need to really work hard at getting this done. So we did.
Awesome.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Amy Wolf, and we'll be excited to do a lot of business with you this year. So we'll keep throwing some up to you.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
All right, bye, guys.
Bye.